It's March 8th, 2024, and I record this in my car because I just got word of what happened, and I'm just completely stunned. When I was in high school and early college, Toonami was really kicking it off on the air, and you had shows like Gundam Wing and Cyborg 009, and of course you had Dragon Ball Z. And I vividly remember moving into my apartment for college my sophomore year, and Dragon Ball Z being on cable, on Cartoon Network, on Toonami, and watching it as it came on the air as the dub was being done. And I vividly remember watching the show, and it was like in the Namek saga, and like the Namek saga is hyping up. Like I'd not seen Super Saiyan yet. I didn't really know, our exposure in the West was so limited to these things that, like, it really was the show that introduced all of us to anime in general. Shows like Gundam Wing, shows like Dragon Ball Z, which are to this day probably still my two favorites, just because they were. It's like with so many things, your first always winds up being the one that you're the most nostalgic for. And I remember watching the show, getting hyped up in the Namek saga, and Frieza just seemed like such an unstoppable force. And then tuning in the next episode, and the show had started over, and I was really confused about what happened. And the internet back then was a thing, but it was not like it is today. And so I just got on the internet and started going through forums and trying to figure out what was going on, and found out that the dub had caught up to the airing. And what that means is that they were dubbing the show as they were putting it on the air, and they were putting it on the air faster than they could dub it. So what happened is that they finally caught up, and so rather than make people wait to watch Dragon Ball, they just started over at the very beginning. And so, like, I had not seen the beginning. I had picked up at sort of right at the beginning of the Frieza saga. And so I watched the whole show through, and all the way back to the Namek saga. Goku went Super Saiyan, and then they did it again, and I was about to lose my mind trying to watch this show. And because it was just so unlike anything I had ever seen and experienced before. And of course, many of you probably have figured out the reason I'm recording this is because Akira Toriyama has passed away. Really suddenly and tragically at the age of 68. Brain hematoma is what I read online. I'm sure more details will come online over the next few days, but I am just in shock. I cried because it's such a part of my childhood. Some of it is that I'm sick this week. I'm sick. I'm under the weather. And so as I'm sick and, reading this article about Akira Toriyama's death, I just couldn't believe it. I kept pulling up more and more articles, and my stupid phone wasn't working. Like, the internet was not working like it should. And so, I just couldn't get the information I wanted. But as it slowly came in, I realized that this was not a hoax, that this was real, and that he was gone. And when I think of Akira Toriyama, I think about that sophomore year in college, sitting around the TV in my apartment with my best friends. My TV had got struck by lightning, and I had gone to Sam's Club. If you don't know what Sam's Club is, if you live outside the United States, it's kind of like Costco. And if you don't know what Costco is, it's just a big box retail store. I'd gone to Sam's and bought a 32-inch CRT television, because flat screen plasmas and LCDs weren't really a thing yet. Not like, for consumer television sets. And I bought this huge 32-inch CRT television, huge for the time, and I lugged it into my home and set it all up. And so I had the biggest TV of all my friends in my own apartment, and we would gather around the couch for Toonami late at night after college, studying for exams, after playing some video games, and we'd catch the latest episode of Dragon Ball Z. And it was just magic. It was just magic. And of course, that was the gateway for so many of us into anime and so much more. Like my friend was like, "Hey, if you love this, I have a game I think you'd really like." I was getting into RPGs at the time. He brought me Chrono Trigger, and I played a little bit of it, and I was like, "This is really cool," but it was his game, so I didn't get to really play it all that long. And he wouldn't let me borrow it for keeps because that's how important the game was to him. And so years later, I got a DS copy and just blew through the game. Um, and I've since then played the SNES version. I've played every version you can get a hold of. What a masterpiece! And a lot of it comes down to the artwork that does the storytelling. And then Dragon Quest XI, just a few years ago, I picked up Dragon Quest XI, and we played through it during the pandemic with my children. And we're sitting on the couch playing it together. And I went through and I bought the PS4 original release because it was on sale. And then my daughter went out and with her own money bought the Switch version with all the updates, and she played it and like just beat it 140%, like 140 hours into Dragon Quest, and I played like 120 hours into Dragon Quest 11, and then you just keep discovering more and more and more and more that this guy touched the art that he did that inspired so many, the stories he told that shaped our lives. When I think about the stories he told, you have to think about Dragon Ball. And Dragon Ball, the story of Son Goku, the legendary warrior, who, above all else, it's not that he's a Super Saiyan, it's not that he's, a superhero. What he is proof that no matter where you come from, no matter the circumstances of your birth, no matter the plans that were laid by other people for your life, hard work, determination, you can achieve your goals. You can be the strongest. Goku is about improvement. It's about self-improvement. And you hear stories about people, and I'm one of them, that watch Dragon Ball and think, I should work out. I remember picking up Men's Health magazine just around the same time that I was watching Dragon Ball for the first time. I was in college, and I was eating things that I'd, not normally eat in college because, you moved out. And I was putting on a little weight, and I was like, I'm going to get into shape, and I'm going to shred, I'm going to look my best. And I got into those things because of Dragon Ball, which is just insane to think about. Recently my family sat down on the couch together. We watched Dragon Ball Superhero, and because another thing I can't help but think about when I think about Akira Toriyama is Gohan's transformation in the Cell Saga when he goes into that ascended Super Saiyan state, and how I remember watching that on television and thinking this might be the greatest thing I've ever seen on television up to this point in my life. Like the full circle of that journey for Gohan and that coming of age story that I was experiencing myself growing up and going to college and then graduating and then like moving on into different parts of my life. And I know that all of that was happening in Japan long before it was happening here in America, but that's when it was happening for me, was that pivotal growing up time in your life. I had to do something. Like I said, I'm a little sick, so I don't really feel like talking and going into a lot of details, and I didn't write a script because I just had so many thoughts on my heart and my mind, and I'll probably write a tribute of some kind or something just to, celebrate what a legacy of art and storytelling. And as a person who, aspires to be an artist and a storyteller as much as he can, what a hero. I remember being in college and drawing Goku and Vegeta in my binder while I was sitting in lectures because I was bored. And it's just magical time. And it's been magical over the years, sharing it with my friends, sharing it with my family, sharing it with my children. And thank you, Akira Toriyama, for so much that you've done to make the world a little bit more of an exciting place, and stories that just inspire people to go out and be better, to work harder. Thanks. I'm going to miss you so much.